I always appreciate when the industry shows some love to the APS-C line of mirrorless cameras because sometimes it feels like they're getting left behind, but not today because Sigma's released this contemporary 15mm f1.4. You can get this for Sony E mount, for Fujifilm X mount, and for Canon RF mount. It's very compact, it's very small, and we have a really cool space to shoot it in. I'm going to be speaking in hushed tones today though because we are shooting in an art gallery. Huge thanks to Contemporary Calgary for letting us shoot in this space. As usual, I'm Chris Niccolls, this is PetaPixel, and I'm going to try to make some art today in this art space. Now, I'm personally really excited to be in this space because I actually haven't been here since it was converted to an art gallery. I'm old and I've lived in Calgary my whole life, and just to give you context, this used to be Calgary Science Center and Planetarium, and I spent many wonderful evenings hanging out here as a child, you know, doing school sleepovers in the Planetarium Theater and seeing all the cool science exhibits. It's really nice to re-explore this place now that it is a center for the art here in Calgary. And you definitely want to get down here and check this out because the Calgary Exposure Photographic Festival is only on here till March 6th, showcasing some really beautiful photography from around the world. Very cool, very experimental work, and I definitely think you should check it out. But as for me, it's time to test this lens out, maybe get some architectural shots, see what I can make in here. So let's get back to the lens review. So one of the goals I'm going to have for shooting today is just we've got this beautiful architecture in here, and a lens like this is really nice for interior architecture because first off, I'm getting that fast f1.4 aperture, but I'm also getting that nice wide angle. This is a 15mm. On most cameras, it's going to give us a full frame field of view of roughly equivalent to 22mm. That's really nice because you get expansive wide angle look, but it's not so distorted as to look unrealistic. And so it's a really nice walk around lens, environmental portrait lens, that kind of thing. Now, Sigma has done something similar before. We did have a 16mm f1.4 lens earlier, but it was quite large, you know, made for APS-C mirrorless, but very big physically. What really stands apart on this lens is how compact it is. So this little 15mm is not only going a little bit wider than that lens, but doing it at a much smaller size. So you've got this very compact plastic hood that just bayonets on the front, covers a 58mm diameter filter thread, and then you have a very small lens that only weighs between 220 to 240 grams depending on the mount, so it's very easy to carry around. But that limited real estate does mean that we have very little in the way of options and controls and switches. So you get a nice manual focus ring, it's damped very nicely. We do get a proper aperture ring, which I always love on these lenses, but we don't get an autofocus manual focus selector switch, and there's no customizable buttons. So keep that in mind, very sparse and simple. That being said, these are fairly well sealed, they're very light. I love the look of the contemporary lenses, and they just keep the cost down and the size down as well. Now, we're actually very thankful to be shooting inside today because outside it is like minus 35 Celsius. I kid you not. It's pretty brutal, but it's also a very sunny day. That's typically how Alberta goes. On our coldest days, it's also incredibly sunny. So we do get a flare test out of it, which is great because we're not going to get that in here. And Sigma always do a really good job with their lenses controlling flare. It seems to be a real goal of their engineers to minimize it as much as possible. Shooting wide open, I still like the contrast that I'm getting here. We're not really getting any ghosting, and stopping down the lens all the way to f11, same story, not really any ghosting showing up. So this is a very flare resistant lens, which is important because you're gonna probably shoot this lens a lot outside for landscapes and things like that. And now for an awkward transition to an entirely different location to hear a word from the sponsor of today's video. B&H, it's a wonderful place to get pretty much anything you could possibly think of that's photographic or videographically related. I mean, it's an awesome store with tons of stock, and there's a really great way to buy your gear here at B&H. Get one of their Payboo credit cards because this gives you two really big advantages. You can either buy gear and then save the sales tax. B&H will refund all the sales tax back to you when you make a purchase.
To check your eligibility for Save the Tax benefits, visit bhphoto.com/payboo.
Or you have another option. You can finance expensive purchases over 6 months or a year using that B&H Payboo Credit Card. And this way you can just spread the payments out a little bit longer, maybe make it a little bit easier on yourself. But as always, remember that this is a credit card, so use it responsibly and that you do have to get approved for this card.
To learn more, visit bhphoto.com/payboo.
So look into getting your own B&H Payboo Credit Card today. It is provided to you by Comenity Capital Bank. Now, a lens that gives us this sort of 22mm wide angle full frame equivalent, but also having an f1.4 aperture, means you can get shallow depth of field in the right situations. It's not going to be a major component of this lens, but getting up close to a subject, I still want to test and see what specular highlights look like, what the background rendition is. It's actually very nice for an affordable lens, as you can see here. Shooting wide open at 1.4, we're getting nice cat's eye effect, nothing too crazy, but very clean. No onion rings, no real soap bubble effect. Stopping the lens down, this is a 9-bladed aperture. It gives us fairly round shapes when shooting specular highlights, but more importantly, when we do have a little bit of softness to the background, it just tends to have a very nice, smooth transition, very non-distracting look. So Sigma did a good job here with that out-of-focus look. Now, it doesn't quite rhyme with bokeh, but we want to talk about Bokeh as well, that longitudinal chromatic aberration that causes color fringing in the foreground and background out-of-focus areas and is really hard to get rid of in post. This does have a bit of Bokeh. It's not terrible, but as you can see here, zoomed in close, shooting wide open, you're going to get a bit of this sort of blue, magenta split, and it is hard to get rid of in post. So if you are shooting high contrast scenes or against bright light sources out of focus and you are going to see that color fringing, might be a little bit tricky to deal with. So let's talk a little bit about what this lens is not amazing at. We've already talked about Bokeh, how you can see a little bit of it, but also close-up capability. It's not great. And again, sometimes it's fun with wide-angle lenses to have the ability to get really close, push that background far away. I mean, you can still do some fun shots here, but we're getting like 1:8 life size just below that. Like, that's nothing to write home about. The other thing is, breathing. We wanted to test that as well. And in case you want to use this for video, breathing is where as you focus from near to far, you might see the frame change the field of view. And it's not great if you want to do creative focus pulls. This lens doesn't focus very close, but it does still actually have a noticeable amount of breathing, as you can see here. So not terribly bad results, but just nothing that this lens is strong at. All right, we put this lens up against our test charts. Let's take a look and talk about sharpness. This is actually really good at f1.4 in the center, as you can see here. Plenty of detail, good contrast. Stopping down the lens in the center really doesn't make much difference. When we look at the corners here, shooting wide open at 1.4, you see a little bit of vignetting, but not much. A little bit of softness, but again, it's pretty decent overall. Stopping down the lens will help in the corners a little bit, but overall, this is a very sharp lens, even if you're shooting it wide open. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I had a ton of fun with this lens walking around here today, and it's very fun building. I mean, beautiful exhibits. Contemporary Calgary is doing a great job of supporting Calgary art, and this is a perfect lens for this. I mean, 22mm focal length is really nice to walk around with. It's fun for landscapes, cityscapes, travel, but I also love having that 1.4 aperture. I can shoot in low light like this and still get really nice shots. I wish I could show you more of it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that little sneak peek look at the Exposure Photography Festival. There's so much more here to see. But again, we got to respect the consent and rights of the artists who put their work up here. So if you are in the Calgary area, come down and check this place out. It's beautiful. But I think we should still answer the question of whether you should buy this lens or not. First off, compared to the older Sigma 16mm f1.4, I prefer this. It's still performing admirably in terms of optical performance. It's smaller, it's lighter, it's slightly wider. I think this would be the way to go. But it also does depend on what kind of lens mount you're looking at this for. I mean, Sony E-mount's tricky because although this is still a really good choice, Sony has a fantastic G-series 15mm f1.4. It's really not that expensive. It's fantastic optically. I mean, that's already covered. For Canon RF mount, this is a no-brainer. I would definitely get this because the fact of the matter is Canon hasn't really supported or made a lens like this for their APS-C mount. You could use an older 16mm full-frame lens, f2.8. You're losing a ton of light in comparison to this. It's bigger than it needs to be. I would definitely go this route. And just like Sony E-mount, Fujifilm X-mount's getting a little bit crowded because there's lots of third-party options as well to compare this against. But if we look at the Fujifilm 16mm f1.4, it's a venerable lens, it's very good optically, it's definitely more expensive, larger, and heavier than this. It's getting a little bit long in the tooth for sure. And again, this does go just that touch wider. So this is, again, gonna be a very compelling product for Fujifilm X-mount. Anyways, guys, we always hope you enjoy what we're giving out there and the content that we're making. Please leave your comments below though and give us that feedback. Definitely check out the PetaPixel podcast as well. It's on this exact same channel where you can listen to it on all your favorite podcasting apps. And do consider getting a PetaPixel.com membership. That supports us and you get all these great benefits back. It basically pays for itself right away. So consider that. It helps us do a lot of fun special projects. Again, big thanks to Contemporary Calgary for letting us shoot here. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you soon with more on PetaPixel.